Hello, am I in the right place?
You are in the right place. How are you?
You don't look like Doug Cook.
I'm not Doug. I need to change my name. Hold on. We had to reassign all the rooms to different people.
How's it going?
But I've seen workshops ranging from like 20 to 45 people.
I see.
I think some of the other ones were lower than that, but the ones I've been in have been about that much. So yeah, it could be a whole bunch.
How are you liking your... I want them to say their name, whether they're farming yet or not, or working on somebody else's farm, and what they hope to get out of this workshop.
Okay. So I'm going to slide share at the beginning, and I'll show a few slides about, we have to thank our sponsors, and we want to acknowledge the indigenous land that we're all on, and we want to just go over a few norms for Zoom. So do you want to do the intros after that? I mean, do you want to do like a little circle after that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So,
and I will share my screen too, because I have a, PowerPoint.
Okay. Do you want to try out the screen share right now, or are you comfortable with that?
I can try it out, just to be, let's see.
All right, and
I'm just better with that light on, or better with it off?
What'd you say?
Is it better when I turn the lamp on, or do you like this better?
Oh, I think it's better with it on. You're sort of in the shadows right now.
I can see all my wrinkles.
I'm going to experiment with one more thing here.
So will you handle the questions?
So I can do as much or as little as you want. Basically what people have been doing is saying, feel free to put your questions in the chat if you have something that comes up during the presentation. And then toward the end, whenever you pause, if you want to leave 20 minutes or however long you want to leave for questions, I can read those to you. Sometimes it's nice if the host reads it aloud and then the presenter answers, although of course you have access to it yourself.
No, I think it'd be good if you read them, but then people could ask questions themselves.
Sure. So I don't know if you want to cover the questions that end up in the chat. Like last time there were maybe 3 or 4 questions that people put in the, and so we covered those first, and then we opened it up for people to unmute and ask questions directly.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Okay, yeah, so I won't interrupt you during your presentation unless there's some kind of burning issue that comes up.
Okay. Do you think I need to introduce myself? Say, hello, my name is Elizabeth Henderson, or do they all know that?
It will be on the slide. I guess it would be nice if I said that, actually. Yeah, so, I mean, I have your bio that's in the, in the program book, which just says that you're retired after 35 years of farming, still busy helping out the movement. What else would you like me to say about you? I know you do a lot.
My farm was one of the very first CSAs, and I'm co-author of the book Sharing the Harvest, which has been very helpful to CSAs.
Sorry, I didn't.
I am co-author.
Can you repeat the name of your book?
What?
Sorry, could you repeat the name of your book?
Sharing the Harvest.
Oh. Okay, and you said you're the author or the co-author?
I'm the main author. Robin Van En started it and then died.
Oh, okay. And you're a founding or almost founding NOFA member as well, is that right?
No, I helped found NOFA in Massachusetts
Okay.
in '83, but not Interstate NOFA, which was founded in '71.
Right, yeah. Okay, great.
And I'm gonna go get a drink of water. Yes, I know. Thank you. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So I am going to take a minute. Apparently, the power is out elsewhere in my neighborhood.
Uh-oh.
So I think it may only be a matter of time before my internet cuts out.
Uh-oh. Okay.
So I think I'm going to try to see if I can connect my computer to my hotspot on my phone because it might actually be more reliable. You are a co-host, so I think if I do drop out, you'll just become the host, and then I'll pop back in, hopefully. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know how to admit people in the waiting room?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you see
Click on
the
invite?
participants?
Yeah.
Okay. So it says right now that one person is waiting. And so people are lining up there. And if you hover over that name, it should allow you to admit them in a few minutes.
Okay, I see. Right.
Okay. Hopefully this is going to go really smoothly and I'll be back in just a minute. But just want to let you know if not. And if I have major problems, I'll have Jason or Barry hop on and help you.
Okay. It's an act of God.
Okay, I still haven't reconnected, but Barry Anderson is going to try to join this group. So if you see Barry, you should let him in. He's going to provide extra tech support if something comes up.
Great. Mhm.
Hey, Barry. Thank you.
Hello,
Jason.
everybody.
I'm going to make you guys co-hosts.
Great. Yep, we have. I got a notification a moment ago that my internet is unstable as well, but you know, fingers crossed.
Hey, Liz,
Okay.
how's the weather at your house, Liz?
It's okay here right now.
Maybe,
Storms later.
yeah.
So I'm going to disconnect. I'll be back. I'm
Okay.
going to try to connect through my.
Yikes. Okay.
I think think that she was saying that she was trying to connect through her hotspot, and we'll
Right.
be
Yeah.
hopefully momentarily back.
I think,
It won't be knocked out by an electric storm.
Right.
I have no idea.
We'll do all that we can, and you know, and who don't have too much to control with weather or electricity.
yeah.
Been a farmer for many years. I know what I can control and what I can't.
Yeah.
So, Jason, if Jocelyn doesn't come back, oh, there she is. But I was going to say, if you're here, maybe you could do the little intro spiel. I'm not, you know, I could wing it, but it would be very much winging it. And
Yeah. If, when she gets back, Jocelyn, if you get back, make me a co-host. Oh, wait, I
Yeah,
am
you are a co-host. You're both co-hosts.
Jason, you're a co-host, and I'll be back in a second.
I am co-host.
I mean, I'm here. I'm just
Oh, Amy.
rebooting my slideshow.
Great.
An old friend from Maine is in the waiting room there.
Oh, yeah, she's presenting.
Yeah, she always does.
Mhm.
She and I meet in very exotic places.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because she goes to the iPhone Organic World Congresses too. So we've met in Italy and South Korea,
Yeah.
Istanbul.
Wow. Well, I'll hang on as a backup, Jocelyn.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
More of us than of them.
So far.
Is there a minimum?
Is there what?
A minimum.
Oh, no, we're recording.
Ah.
So this is rain or shine.
Okay. Are there any scholarships available yet anymore?
I believe there are some scholarships left, yeah.
Uh-huh. Because there's a young farmer an urban farmer, he said he spent all his money getting set up this year. And I was trying to get him to come tonight.
We
there are
have
definitely scholarships available. So send him over. Marge, who's the registration coordinator,
Okay.
is the person to talk to. But I'm sure we can get your farmer friend in, and would love to have him.
Okay, I will let him know.
And Marge, her email is Marjorie. It's MARJORIE at nofamass.org.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, should we let people in?
Yep. Open the gates.
All right.
Hi, Joe.
You're on mute, Joe.
Hey, everybody. We'll give folks a few more minutes to join in here. So I may be able to run the slideshow, but my sound quality might not be good. So I may need somebody to help me with reading the slides.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi there.
It's Amy.
Yeah, how are you? Good to have you here.
Doing well. How about yourself?
I am not complaining.
Yeah.
Compared to most of the people in this world, I'm doing really well.
Okay, why don't we get started here, and if somebody's willing to kind of jump in if my internet goes out and let me know you can't hear me, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. As I've mentioned to a few of you, I have a thunderstorm going on in the background, so it's been a little touch and go here with technology, but welcome to 5 Big Lessons Learned from 30 plus years of farming. We're going to hear from Liz Henderson, and as you saw in Liz's bio in the program book, Liz is retired with NOFA New York, the Interstate Council. Liz has been a longtime farmer. Her farm was one of the first CSAs, and she also was involved in founding NOFA Massachusetts back in 1983. She's now in New York. And she's also the author of Sharing the Harvest. So we have a lot to learn from Liz and all of her experience. And before we jump into that, I just have a few announcements, and we'd like to start by thanking our sponsors. Oh, and my slide is not moving.
Not moving?
Not moving. Okay, here
Try
are
again.
gold sponsors.
Oh, here we
There
go.
you go. And we just want to really encourage everybody to please support these sponsors and let them know how much you appreciate them supporting the NOFA Summer Conference. Many of you have participated in probably more Zoom meetings than you would like over the past few months, but we just want to lay out a few pieces of information. The default here is to mute participants upon entry. So if you do want to speak, all you need to do is press the microphone icon, which is usually at the bottom of the screen. And if Jason could check the waiting room, that would be great. If you don't mind muting yourself after you're done speaking to avoid background noise, that would be really helpful. Basically, we will be opening up the floor for conversation and questions toward the end, but throughout the presentation, you're welcome to use the chat feature if you want to comment or ask questions. I will be reading the chat throughout, and then at the end, I will read those questions aloud to Liz, and we'll kind of go through those, and we will hopefully also have time for you to ask questions out loud if you'd prefer that. And just so you know, this session is being recorded so that we can share it with folks after the meeting, and so that you can all participate in all of the conference workshops after the fact. And lastly, before we jump in here, I just want to acknowledge, and you're going to see this probably in every workshop that you attend, I just want to acknowledge that we are presenting, attending, and hosting this conference from land that was originally inhabited and managed prior to European colonization. So you're going to be having the opportunity to check out this website, nativeland.ca, and it's just important to be aware of the indigenous people who lived on the land, and also considering the intervening history that has led to white people who make up just over 60% of the US population owning 98% of rural land. So we just want to encourage you to use this slide as a reminder of the larger history and systems that our farming, food systems, and gardening practices are rooted in. So I'll share this website in the chat in just a minute. So without further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Liz. Welcome, everybody.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Henderson, and I'm really glad to be with you here this evening. And I would like to start by acknowledging that I currently live and I farmed for many years on unceded land that was home to many generations of the Seneca, who are members of the Six Nations of the Haudenosaunee. And in 2013, I took part in the Turo Wampum canoe trip to commemorate the 400th anniversary of the treaties between the Europeans and the native peoples, treaties that white people have not honored. So I hope that this workshop will give you some helpful ideas about either starting a farm or improving your farm, because with climate change, farming is getting even harder than it was when I started farming 40 years ago. In the context of the global economy, there are tremendous obstacles to farming successfully in the United States and in much of the world. The food system in the empire is based on profit, not on the right of human beings to healthy food and food sovereignty. Yet people who are determined manage to farm anyway. So I would really like it if we could start by going around the circle, and if each of you would just say your name and whether you're farming or have farmed, or if you garden, and maybe one sentence about what you hope to get out of this workshop. So Jocelyn, can you do that, or let people in one by one? Or
Yeah, maybe I should just say people's names because sometimes it's confusing. We're not all in the same order in the same circle.
that's a good
Would that be
idea.
helpful?
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm seeing Agnes.
Hi, my name is Agnes. I garden. I'm with the garden, and just kind of hope to get obviously like advice from people with more experience. So I'm excited.
Thank you. I'll say a couple people's names in a row. I see Monique and then Amy.
Does Monique go first?
Yes, Monique and then Amy, yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Monique. I do a lot with community farms and gardens. We do nonprofit startups, really, supporting them until they're ready to, they have legs and they run on their own and go to the next project. So I'd love to hear of your years and years of experience of how you're doing it.
Amy?
Hi, I'm from Maine. I have a small farm, organic. Have been growing herbs and veggies here for 30 years. A good portion of our income, but most of it is for our own food. And I've been admiring Elizabeth's tenacity and experience and would love to learn from her as always.
Thank you.
Mutual
Okay,
admiration. Yeah.
Next one we have Mandy and then Melissa.
Oh, hello. I'm Mandy. I've been a gardener and also worked on and volunteered on a CSA for many years. And I'm looking now I'm 60 years old. I want to figure out whether I can still fulfill a dream of creating a larger place. And what would make sense to include in trying to do something more sustainable with animals, and to help me figure out what I should look for and not go beyond what I'll be able to handle. Wish me luck.
I do.
Thank you. Did we hear from Melissa?
No, hi, that's me. So I'm partnered with a very serious gardener, and I have the pleasure of figuring out what to do with the harvest. I mean, we both do that part, but I don't tend to get literally my hands dirty as much. But I make a lot of things from the garden. I make soap from some of the flowers and herbs, and one of the sweet things about the smaller conference, looking for the gifts in this experience, is that this is a workshop that I wouldn't likely have chosen when there were a lot of other workshops and other things closer to what I do. So I'm really looking forward to just having my horizons broadened from just hearing about your wonderful experience and understanding more. So thank you.
Okay. Next, I see Star Livingstone, and then just a number that says 093832. Okay, does 093 want to jump in here?
Sure, I can. So I'll be turning my video on later, but right now I'll be eating dinner. And I'm just so happy that I can learn from someone who has been a farmer for so long. And I think that's just so valuable to hear from people who have been farmers for so long. And I myself, my name is, I do have a name. My name is Catherine. And I guess I don't have a Zoom profile or something, so that's why I have the number. And I'm on my mother's laptop, and I am farming on my own home property, my family property, and I guess I'm more of a homesteader at this point, but I'm too young to really define what I am at this point. And I'm looking towards getting goats, and I have chickens, and I'm just really interested in just thinking out of the box and just using every resource that I have on my little piece of property. So I'm very glad to be here, and I hope to really learn, as I'm sure I will.
Thank you. Okay, next I see Indira and then Joe.
Hi, I'm Indra. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm Indra. And I'm doing my research in naturalistic intelligence. And I'm incorporating garden learning in special education. And I'm a gardener. Thank you. I come from India, and I settled down here for the past 4 years. I'm doing my research with the Rhode Island School of Design, and now with special education course with Rhode Island College and sustainable education with Harvard. I'm, I'm exploring the possibilities. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, I don't know if you're on mute, but feel free to jump in here.
My name is Joe Gersett. I'm a gardener since the beginning of the Second World War, and I've learned a lot from Liz, traveling with her to meetings, and I look forward to learning more from her. Right now, I garden in my front yard, and I donate all of my products to a food shelf that I started 25 years ago. I'm also I've cooked a lot of vegetarian meals, and I look forward to learning even more from Liz tonight.
Great, thank you. I'm going to read off 4 or 5 more names if we could go in this order. Paul, Richard, Russ, Susan, and Tom. And then I think I've covered everybody. Paul, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Paul Feenan with from High Mowing Seeds. I'm really glad to be here. And the title, that's a great title. You got to go to a workshop with that title.
This is Richard Robinson. You'll see me on the screen twice. The sound is better on my desktop, but it doesn't have a microphone. I run a small farm in Sherborne, Massachusetts. And I agree with Paul. Title, nice job there, Liz. I'm really intrigued.
Great, thanks. So we have Russ, Susan, and Tom.
Hi, my name is Russ. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My wife, Kathy, and I retired a couple of years ago, 3 years ago actually, moved to a property in Lancaster, Mass, started homesteading, and we're expanding out rapidly, but have a massive amount to learn. So I think as people have said, this sounds like a perfect title. We have a lot to learn, and I hope to learn a lot from this presentation.
Great. Susan, are you there?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
So my name's Susie and I'm a gardener, and I was hoping to hear about 30 years of mistakes because I think it'll be really valuable. Thank you.
I'm Tom Mann.
Tom.
I happen to be the partnership director at Moses, which is a partner organization to NOFA. We certainly engage in a lot of the same kind of activities and content. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. Every single thing I know, I learned from other farmers. I farm in western Wisconsin, so I'm joining you from a long way away on land that was originally farmed by the Lakota people. And I'm just happy to be here tonight and learn everything I can from Liz. So thanks.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? My screen has been changing order as I go along. Great. Well, I want to thank Juliet, Jason, and Barry for being here to provide technical support. We've had some unstable internet, so thank you guys very much. I think if we don't have anybody else to check in here, we'll go back to Liz.
Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. And good evening, everybody. It's so nice to know who I'm talking to in this very strange way. These days, if you're farming, there's so many resources through the NOFAs and through other training programs, I guess, Tom, like yours. And I'm hopeful that the huge surge that's going on in energy in support of Black Lives Matter will materialize into access to the land and resources for Black and Indigenous and people of color, the resources that they need and that they fully deserve. For food sovereignty to become a reality, We need a massive people's movement with white people working together with and in solidarity with people of color. So this is my plan. I'm going to do a combination of reminiscing and how-to. And I'll share photos from the 3 startups and start overs. And there's still some big lessons that I learned in the process. So in the late 70s, I decided to leave my teaching job and move to the country so that I could raise my son in a place that was clean and healthy. After some false starts, I purchased a farm with a group of friends. And you can kind of see the countryside in this slide. But this is basically what the buildings look like. By pooling resources, we were able to purchase half of a farm that had been abandoned after the farmhouse and barns burned down. We spent $49,000 for about 50 acres, and we wrote a very clear contract on how partners could leave our partnership, and that turned out to be very helpful when we split up. My original intention was to keep on teaching through a University Without Walls program and to homestead, but I found that I loved the work and the challenges. We didn't have running water at first. We used a pump. We built our first gardens from what was the barnyard of the old barn, so it was very rich soil with a lot of manure from the cows coming in and out. This was our very first garden. And we had something that's very important for starting up a farm. We had a great neighbor, a farmer named Skeezy Flag. And he helped us put this old combine back together. It had belonged to a group of hippies across the border in Vermont, and they had used it for some beans that they grew, and then they left it by the side of the road. So we took it over, and he helped us put it back together again, and we grew a crop of soybeans. And he had never grown soybeans before. This was 1979, but after that, he did it every year. We made permanent raised beds because our main field was very wet, and that way we didn't have to work all of the ground, and the drainage was improved by doing that. We grew regular crops. We started asparagus. That was the very first thing we put in, so because it takes 3 years before you can start harvesting. Our first building was a 6-sided barn, and that's where we spent our first winter. And there's my mother visiting and my son Andy, who at that time was 6. Very important neighbors were Juanita and Wally Nelson. They became really close friends, and they're people from whom I learned a great deal. We shared selling together. Wally and I would go to the basements of restaurants and pick up boxes that we could use to pack our stuff in. Juanita was the founder of the farmers market in Greenfield, and I sold my stuff there. And they were leaders in tax resistance, and I joined them for a while. And then after building the barn, we built a house, again, 6-sided. And there's my mother with her umbrella. She was very much a city person, but she tolerated my doing all of this. It was very strange to her what her daughter was up to. These were friends from the university where I had quit my job, and I invited anybody who wanted to come out and learn what it was like to move to the country and build things. And this is what the house looked like in the wintertime. It was very beautiful there. And with our friends Jacques and Benji Lasso, we were able to get some Jacob sheep. And their shelter was right outside my window. So I learned how it is that Jacob sheep build up their neck muscles to the point where they can carry the huge amount of horns that they have. As the young males start butting heads, as soon as the slightest light comes over the horizon, they're out there, bam, bam, butting their heads together. So that's what I looked like back in 1980. So big lesson number one, don't be afraid to start, even if there are many skills you must acquire to make it work. I came from a family where there wasn't anybody who was handy with tools. My father didn't know how to change a fuse, and he didn't want to learn how. So I had to start from scratch, learning physical labor and mechanical skills. Like many people, women especially, I become really stupid when I'm under pressure. So get someone other than your partner to teach you skills like driving a tractor or repairs and maintenance. Men have a way when they're repairing things of going, well, when people talk like that, I get really stupid and nervous. So, startup number two. I moved to Rose Valley Farm in Rose, New York, to farm with David Stern, who had already been farming there for about a decade. And he and I agreed to make our entire living from farming doing commercial scale organic production. We grew up to 25 acres of NOFA, New York certified organic vegetables and blueberries, selling to co-ops, farmers markets, a couple of local restaurants, and we were one of the first organic farms to sell to Wegmans, which now has a big organic section. But back in those days, they would put our vegetables on a separate table that didn't have a cooler or a mister. So the vegetables looked beautiful in the morning, but by late in the afternoon, they looked like they'd ridden to Siberia and back. And that's what people thought organic vegetables looked like. With the help of, we didn't actually hire anybody. We had interns, so we trained people. And like the young guy who's leaning against the sign, we gave jobs to youngsters in the neighborhood. So we had any number of wonderful interns, people who've gone on to farm on their own. And this is what my son looked like by this point in my career, getting a little bigger and capable of doing a lot more work. And this is Greg Palmer with his daughter. And Greg started as an intern with us. And then when both of us left Rose Valley, he became my partner. So with the help of Robin Van En's little book, It's Not Just About Vegetables, and the Politics of Food in Rochester, we started the Genesee Valley Organic Community-Supported Agriculture Project. Later, we renamed it Piecework Organic CSA. And it was the first CSA west of Albany in 1988-89. And there are two outstanding features. Everyone participated, either as a member of the core group that did administrative tasks, or helping with distribution and harvesting at the farm. And it's really important to point out that Piecework CSA has always been a separate legal entity from the farm. It was a buying club, an unincorporated association, like many of the city CSAs, like those that have been set up by Just Food in New York City. And that way, being a separate political entity, it has gone on existing. And after I retired and my partners Greg and Amy retired, the CSA is still there. And now I'm a member of the core group. And we get vegetables from Mud Creek, which is run by Ruth Blackwell, who worked at Piecework Farm for a few years. And at our CSA, children were always welcome. This was a youngster who was adopted blind from India. And she's a grown-up now. There are always children around, and we could find good jobs for them to do. And one of our members was Marilyn Anderson, who's a wonderful photographer and an artist. And she's taken some of these photos and turned them into paintings. And of course, we understood that we wouldn't get very much farm work out of Marilyn, but it was wonderful having her there and really appreciate the artwork that she created based on our farming. We did our distribution at first at a church. And then when the Abundance Food Co-op opened a storefront, we moved to the co-op. Because one of the sixth principle of co-ops is cooperation among co-ops. And that turned out to be very valuable both for the Abundance Food Co-op and for our farm. The evenings when our 300 shares picked up their shares at the co-op, lots of additional shopping was done that was good for the store. And the produce manager and I would make sure that he knew what to expect so that he could buy complimentary things. So we really weren't in competition with the produce section of the co-op. So this is what it looked like before the move. And this is what it looks like this year, where distribution takes place outside the back door of the co-op under a tent so that it's out in the open air and everybody can be masked and wear gloves and distanced safely from one another. After 10 years at Rose Valley, David and I separated and I left the farm and Greg also decided to leave. David didn't want the CSA, and so the Genesee Valley Organic CSA stayed with me and also helped me find a new place to farm. And this was the place. It was land that belonged to the Cry family. So big lesson number 2, write your separation agreement during the honeymoon and absolutely insist on a conflict resolution process or don't go in with partners. And if you need a model conflict resolution policy from the Agricultural Justice Project, I'd be happy to send it to you. You can study nonviolent communication, which is always handy. And big lesson number 3, for a CSA, asking more of your members actually increases retention. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You have to organize their help well. Study organizing if you don't know how to do it yourself. There are lots of ways to learn more about how to keep volunteers organized, or find a partner who's a skilled volunteer manager. And the book that I wrote with Robin Van Inn, Sharing the Harvest, has many, many suggestions on how to involve members and jobs that are suitable for them and jobs that aren't, and ways to use that book to show them all the jobs that have to be done for CSA and that they are probably just as good at or maybe better at than you are, so they could help you out by taking them on. So it was members of our CSA who did the newsletter, who taught me how to run a computer. Actually, one of our members brought me a computer and sat me down and taught me how to use it. And he told me, you've got to learn to use the World Wide Web. And I made fun of him. I said, what do I need the World Wide Web to get local people to join a local farm? That's ridiculous. But he was right. So startup number 3. The core group helped me and Greg Palmer find a new place to farm and to negotiate agreement with Doug Cry, the man in the blue bandana there. And Doug had a herd of bison, and he agreed to rent us 18 acres of his several hundred acres of land and to let us use these old farm buildings that used to belong to the Humbert Dairy Farm. Doug was a fiercely committed conservationist, and he was very pleased by the system that we used of permanent beds with grass strips in between, because this meant that we could really build up the quality of the soil and weren't doing excessive amounts of tillage. So this is something that's become more and more popular now, but we were actually doing it minimum tillage back then. And we used a spader to create the beds, which disturbs the soil less than some of the other kinds of tillage equipment that you can use. So the core group continued to handle many of the administrative tasks, recruiting all of the members. The treasurer collected the money. They signed up people, so this is one of the sign-up meetings. We charged on a sliding scale so that more affluent members could support lower income members. We accepted SNAP payments. And when the core saw our budget and learned how much my farm partners and I were earning, and that we didn't have a line in the budget for health insurance, they actually voted to raise the share price so that we could afford health insurance and a small retirement fund. So when I reached 68, I did retire, and I've been able to live on Social Security and the bit of money that I saved. So when I started up this third time, I knew what I needed to farm efficiently. I needed a greenhouse. So here are members helping dig the foundation for a greenhouse and helping build it. One of the members was an architect, and she designed the greenhouse. And here's what it looks like inside with Katie, who now works at High Mowing. No, she's at a college in Vermont now. Members helped dig a really deep cold frame, and that we built so that we could extend the capacity of the greenhouse and harden up plants and even close it up if it got too cold, or cover it over so that if the weather was dubious. Members helped clean out the old barn and create a packing shed. And this was my son and his new wife who helped do some of that construction work. This is the inside of the packing shed. And Ruth Blackwell, who now farms at Mud Creek, packing some basil. So in that packing shed, as you can see, there's a washer for washing root crops. And right there behind the blackboard is a walk-in cooler so that we could keep our vegetables cool and pack more efficiently. Pack some things the day before, like it's actually better to pick lettuce and cool it off well rather than picking it if it's a hot weather and then it doesn't keep as well even in people's refrigerators. So then when Doug Cry died really suddenly of cancer, and Becky, his widow, offered to sell us the farm, members of the core group who were active in the Genesee Valley Land Trust helped raise the money for the land trust to buy the land. I had skipped over this one. They helped us build a couple of hoop houses as well, and continue doing farm work, and carted the food back to the city in their vehicles. So they drove a whole hour out to the farm to help with the harvesting, and then on the way back, dropped the food off at the Abundance Co-op. So it was actually like a 6 or 7 hour morning. We tried to get as many people as possible to stay and have lunch with us. It was a big investment of people's time, but it was also very educational for them, because they went home after 4 hours of farm work pretty tired, and they realized how important the work is that farm workers do. So as I started to say, when Doug died suddenly, members contributed the money to the Genesee Land Trust to buy this land that we had been farming. And here's the ceremony that we went through when we completed the purchase of the land, and that framed piece that I'm holding there is a list of all of the people who contributed money to purchase the farm for the land trust. And then the land trust leased it back to us with a 25-year rolling lease. And that's the arrangement they have with the new farmers there. So, big lesson number 4. Social capital is the alternative to financial capital. Be creative about finding resources from your community in order to keep debt to a minimum. In growing food for our CSA members, we were building social capital. Members wanted to contribute. They didn't view the farm as the farmer's private enterprise. It was our cooperative endeavor. And the less money you need, the freer you are. My partners, Greg and Amy and I, agreed to live on $20,000 a year each and to generate that much money through the CSA. And before I even started farming, someone had advised me to put away enough money to live on for a year, which I did while I still had a teaching job. And I still have that extra bit of money as a cushion so that I don't have to worry about money. And I haven't touched it all these years, but it's there if I need it. We considered ourselves blue-collar farmers, and we usually trained interns rather than hiring employees. We grew most of our own food, we canned, we freezed, and Greg and Emmy cut wood to heat their house. In starting up together, we did a 3-day training in whole farm planning, holistic resource management. And I highly recommend taking one of those trainings to force yourself to do the hard work of writing your 3-part goals, your quality of life, forms of production, and your future resource base. Because that way, you know what you want. You can make decisions that lead you in that direction and don't take you somewhere else. And one of the best resources for learning or improving farm management is Richard Wiswall's The Organic Farmer's Business Handbook. And he starts off with helping you create your 3-part goals. I just cannot emphasize enough how important that is, so that you design your farm around your deepest values. It's great to learn from other people, but your farm needs to be built around what you can do and what you value, you and your partners working together so it suits you and you get some pleasure out of life. And if you want to make money, you probably should think about not doing farming because you're not going to make a lot of money doing that. It isn't exactly like signing vows of poverty, but not all that different. And these days there are grants available for beginning farmers and for starting a farm, but I urge those of you who are in that situation to avoid borrowing money if you possibly can, unless you can maybe borrow it from a community developed financial institution, a CDFI, because they prioritize community values instead of profit and may help you with financial advice or business planning, or the Carrot Project, which also does that. So finally, big lesson number 5. This is one of our community celebrations. The lesson is help build our movement for a more resilient, localized, agroecological, permaculture, organic, biodynamic, equitable, and racially just network of farms in a people's cooperative food system. Some farmers choose to build their own brand. I urge you to build our movement instead. During 50 years of steady participation, organic farmers, gardeners, and homesteaders have built the NOFAs and contributed to buy local campaigns and to the national and international networks for a more sustainable agriculture. So if there are grants available today and federal programs that help new farmers, it's because we have built this movement and put the time in to do that over and above our farming. There are almost infinite ways of doing that, as there are infinite ways of celebrating and dancing and singing. or sharing food with other people. You can dedicate an hour or two a week to your local planning board, to the farmers market, to a food co-op. You can join NOFA or the National Young Farmers Coalition. You can be certified organic. You can be certified Real Organic Project. You can be certified Food Justice. You can connect with and respond to the latest news from abroad through the U.S. Food Sovereignty Alliance. You can be involved with Via Campesina. You can, like the NOFAs, be involved with the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements and arrange to go to the Organic World Congress every 3 years. You can be involved, as I am, with Urgency, which is the International CSA Network. And in the United States, there's now a national CSA network, the CSA Innovation Network. Another resource that I highly recommend is Lauren Langnick's book, Resilient Agriculture, Cultivating Food Systems for a Changing Climate. A new edition will be coming out in early 2021, but the first edition is really good in the meantime. Her book will help you make your farm more resilient and to understand that cultivating a resilient agriculture cannot be accomplished through actions taken only at the individual farm or ranch scale. A resilient agriculture will require a transformation of the operating context of American agriculture, the U.S. industrial food system. Laura teaches, and I quote, ecosystem-based adaptation refers to strategies that focus on conserving, restoring, and using the climate protection services of ecosystems to reduce climate change vulnerability of natural and human-dominated communities. An ecosystem's approach to adaptation can fulfill objectives for both mitigation and adaptation to climate change, as well as build the foundation for long-term community sustainability and resilience. In other words, you need to learn to think like a peasant. That is the essence of all indigenous thinking and indigenous systems of growing food. Working close to nature. That way you learn to harmonize with natural forces, to maximize the interrelated synergies of the natural resources in your farm or your garden and in your community. You'll choose people over profit and avoid or minimize concessions to corporate power. We can evade the tentacles of the empire. And when you're aware of the interconnectedness of everything, you will see that growing food and fiber in harmony with nature does not fit well with capitalism. As the swelling voices of Black Lives Matter are telling us, it's time for system change. So now I'd be really happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your experience. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay, great. So I don't see questions in the chat. If people are feeling shy about speaking up, I think they should feel free to post their questions in the chat. Otherwise, maybe, yeah, if you want to take it off the screen share, we can see each other's faces. People can chime in, you know, take yourself off mute, chime in that way if you'd like. I just want to start out by saying I really appreciate your focus on community and focus on sort of explaining at each step of the way how you delegated and brought in resources of all the people in your surroundings. I feel like a lot of times we feel like homesteading or farming is about self-sufficiency, and you know, in some ways it is, but I think you can get so caught up in that that you forget to remember that somebody else can write that CSA newsletter, or somebody else has some skill that you don't have, and we don't all need to be well-versed in all of those skills if we're good at delegating and bringing in volunteers and bringing in the talents of others. And you also emphasize how that actually engages people rather than pushing people away. It can make people feel more invested. So I really appreciate that thread that came up throughout your talk. So thank you very much. I want to turn things over to anybody in the audience who'd like to jump in with a question. And again, feel free to jump into the chat
I
too.
see a hand from Indira Patniak.
Oh, yes. Go for it.
Unmute yourself, Indira. There you go.
I was showing the emoji, that clapping, that it was a wonderful program. It's very inspiring. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very inspiring that how a woman as a gardener, how you give an importance for the values which you, and driving that, and connecting the community, and it's wonderful. Like I was totally mesmerized. I don't have any question. Just like you have made me to feel that, like virtually you have taken us to that moment, and it's amazing. And so that I have sent the clap hands to you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you both appreciate that. I think there are a lot of workshops, how to grow things, how to take care of livestock. And we don't talk enough about the social relations that are totally critical to having a good life farming.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we have a couple notes in the chat. Amy is saying the focus on teaching through internships is so important. Can you talk about how your interns have moved on and continued your message?
Well, I'm really proud that some of them are running really successful farms. There was one young man who started coming to our farm as a CSA member when he was about 12. He insisted that his parents join so that he could come out to the farm, and he came out more and more. And when he was 12 and 13, 14, he didn't care what was going on. If he had a question, he asked it. He would butt right in. And then he said to me, you know, I realize I'm a difficult teenager, but I am going to be a successful adult. And indeed he is. He's farming in Ontario. And he asked all those questions, but he listened to the answers and took them to heart and has used them really well. So I guess what I found is that young people who want to farm have a lot of ideas themselves. And so giving people space to try out their ideas is really important. But on the other hand, I felt it was important to them that farming and gardening is a craft that comes out of millennia of people adding bit by bit to it over all this time. So learning to respect what they learn from others and not rushing in to claim that, well, I invented this, or, you know, this is my tool, when really, you know, some of those new tools are just like, you know, the tiniest little modification of something that French peasants used for a couple hundred years.
Can I say something? This is Joe Gersett. And again, you have inspired us with, I think of still waters run deep, and your message of involving people and cooperating with them. And I just want to mention, you mentioned twice at least, people of color. And today I received this book in the mail.
Oh.
And, it's Farming While Black. And this woman and her husband started this operation near Albany, New York, and it is just fantastic. I have a library of well over 40 gardening books, including most of the ones that Liz mentioned, but this is the best book I have ever seen that involves many of the values that Liz talked about and what she's doing to just create new things in the agriculture area. I can't praise Liz more and this book that I went page by page with, beautifully illustrated. I advise you to buy it. It came out about a year ago. It's called Farming While Black, and I can see the smile on Liz's face.
Well, actually, Leah Penniman is a friend of mine. And when she said she was going to write a book, I offered to help do some of the editing on it. And so she took me up on it. And the fall that she was writing it, it was like 3 falls ago, she cranked that book out at the rate of a chapter a week. She absolutely buried me. It flowed out from her. It's a magnificent book. So if you haven't read it, it's really required reading. A lot of how-to along with what for. Tom, you were going to say something?
I might chime in here. I hate to interrupt, but we were honored to have Leah Penniman as one of our keynotes at our conference in February. She brought a perspective to these issues that I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen anyone else frame them quite as eloquently as she did. Her keynote from our conference is available online. It's on our YouTube channel. If you go to the Moses YouTube channel, you can see it there. It started so many discussions in our community, and the discussion did create some discomfort, but it's some necessary discomfort. We know that our farming community is predominantly white. Those of us who hold land, we tend to be white. These are issues that might make us uncomfortable. It made some people in our community uncomfortable, but we absolutely thought it was 100% necessary to have Leah there. We were thrilled with what that to our conference, and we juxtaposed her keynote with John Eichert's keynote. And they were talking about exactly the same issues, but from 2 completely different perspectives and 2 different experiences. And no, Leah is wonderful. We were thrilled to have her. Absolutely. Everybody who hasn't read that book, please do so. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Elizabeth, for the things you shared tonight. And for me, it just keeps coming back to this village model. You know, when you talked about how the members in your CSA, when they discovered that you as a producer weren't enjoying the livelihood, a right livelihood, a just livelihood, that they wanted to step up and change that. That's what happens in a village model. When you have economies that are scaled appropriately, and they understand that it requires every one of us and our skill set to provide for each other, then we are inclined to want to make sure we understand that my livelihood depends on your livelihood.
Yeah.
And so these are the things that we just have to keep getting back to, these reestablishing a real agrarian rural economy that works for everybody, where we have an equitable distribution of those resources and that land under our feet. And we understand that the food that we eat, the things that provide for us, can't come from 1 or 2% of the population. We need to all be engaged in our actual survival. And CSAs are a great step toward that. The things you shared in your community, those are things that give me inspiration for the work that we try to do every day too. And what I'm trying to do with my farm, it's all about building community. It's about people understanding that your livelihood comes from healthy living soil and healthy living communities. And that is all about human relationships. So thank you.
Well, thank you for a lovely statement. Just to build on that, one of the things that our movement for organic agriculture has really suffered from and lost from is that we didn't connect as well as we should with the indigenous origins of the kind of farming that we do, and with the people like Booker T. Washington and Booker T. Whatley at the Tuskegee Institute, George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was really the first teacher of organic agriculture in this country. He should be up there in our canon along with Rudolph and Rodel. you know, those white men have crowded out those other people. Let's just move them over and learn from the other great teachers. And George Washington Carver, I've read some of the things that he wrote, and Booker T. Washington. They were trying to solve the problem of how a small black farm can make a living. People with very modest resources. And what's more, they had to be very careful in not doing it in a way which was at all demonstrative, because a black farming family that looked too rich could be driven out of town by their white neighbors. So using what was there, the dredging the swamp, using the leaves from the forest, recycling, using legumes like peanuts or other legumes as a source of nitrogen, rather than buying things from the white store, were really important to that community self-development. And I, being the honorary president of Urgency, which is the international CSA network, I've had the chance to go to a number of their international gatherings. And at the last one, I met a man from Palestine who is a leader in teaching agroecology. And he says, by using agroecological methods, the kind of methods that Booker T. Washington taught, pulling yourself up by what you have in your own village, the Palestinian villages are actually able to do much better because they don't have to buy anything from the Israelis. They can take care of themselves, their own village. So this all becomes very political very quickly. But I want to recommend to you a few of the organizations that are helping people of color get the resources that they need. There's the New Entry Sustainable Farming Project, which trains refugees. They have great courses. The Black Family Land Trust and the New Community Land Trust, the Black Farmers Fund, the Land Loss Prevention Project, which is one of the oldest projects of that kind, which helps Black farmers get access and keep access to land, and the Federation of Southern Co-ops. And in the southern states, there's SAFON, the Southeast African American Farmers Organic Network. So those are a bunch of organizations that if you have a few extra bucks, you could contribute to them or become involved with them. So we have some more time for discussion and questions.
So I tried to jot down a few of the organizations you mentioned and I put them in the chat, but we also have a Facebook group for sort of follow-up, and I'll try to put that in the chat in a minute. So I'm wondering if maybe we could chat at the end. Oh, sorry. Maybe I can get a few more of the names that you mentioned. You mentioned some other organizations earlier. So maybe I can put those all in the Facebook group in case people are interested in circling back around and looking into any of that. Thank you. So we do have another question in the chat, but if other people want to chime in right now, just with a live question, go for it. No, it takes people a minute to unmute themselves. So the question we have in the chat, and then we can open it up again, is one participant is wondering if you could talk about a couple of mistakes you made over the years.
Oh, there were many.
I guess they said big mistakes.
Well, I thought a big mistake was getting involved with growing hay and cutting it. It's really hard work. It's dusty when you bale it and use an old baler. Something is sure to break. So it's much better to let animals feed themselves as much as you can. Let them graze and do their own harvesting. let's see. Well, mistakes. The painful mistake not to have insisted on a conflict resolution process with my partners. If people don't want to sit down and work things out, it's very difficult. You never resolve the things that are problems, so they just build up and get worse.
So do you have, could I ask, did you work with a mediator?
Yeah, I think if you can't, but see, to work with a mediator, everybody has to agree to a mediation.
Right.
And my partner would only agree to a mediation after, when it came to dividing things up. Then he would sit down and mediate.
Yeah, yeah.
But in New York State, I don't know if it's true in all the other states, agricultural mediations are free. So something like a partnership dividing up would be an agricultural mediation, and the Center for Dispute Settlement would do that as a free mediation. I'm not sure about all of the other states, but I know there are centers for dispute settlement in most of the Northeast states. I don't know about out where you are, Tom, in Wisconsin, whether you have that too.
Thank you. Good advice.
Mediation is a really important skill. It makes people be quiet while you listen to the other person's story. And then you have to negotiate a settlement. And hopefully both stick to it.
Any follow-up questions on that before we jump to the next chat? Okay, Amy is wondering, aside from wonderful interns and members of your community, what do you think is the most important impact we should all be striving for? The most important impact.
The important impact of, let me read it because I didn't quite get what the question is.
Or Amy, if you want to jump in and restate that, that would be fine too.
Oh, the impact we should all strive for. Okay. Sorry. Anyway. Well, I think one of the things that's really important is that what we're doing, other people who haven't ever farmed or gardened, they think of it as really hard work. Dirty, you tear your clothes, you have dirty fingernails. They think of it as hard. But really most of what we're doing is very joyous and health-giving. That doing physical labor is good for your body. You may not want to do it 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day. I mean, that's the problem with the jobs that most farm workers in this country have on industrial scale farms. They have to do the same thing over and over and over again for 12, 14 hours. And that's just devastating to your body. But when you run a small scale farm or a garden, you're doing different things all of the time. So it's very interesting work. It's problem solving. And there actually is, it's healthy for your body to be in touch with the soil. Your microbiome will be healthier if your fingers spend some time every day in a healthy soil biome. And I found, I became a farmer and a gardener after my husband was killed in a car crash. And growing things was very, very healing for me. Being in close touch with the cycle of life and death. It made it all just a more natural thing to experience. So I sharing that, Amy, I think is important. Sharing the joy and the natural lessons that we learn by being in touch. And it really puts us white people in this white supremacist society in touch with the majority of the people all around the world who are people of color, who are peasants, so that we're not so separate and we understand what the privileges are, and that really giving most of them up isn't very painful. I don't understand what it is people spend all that money on. So the idea of taxing the rich and maybe really eliminating the possibility of being a billionaire so that those resources can be redistributed and used in a way that's good for the community would just make so much sense.
Liz, redistributing talent and energy is also important. And all the kids that I've had work here for years, that's what I've strived for the entire time. And I have a lot of farmers to my credit, and gardeners too. But having kids learn to enjoy the ownership of their own labor and being able to eat it too, it's that's a treasure. And I guess that's part of being a teacher.
Yep, that's certainly true. To say a few more words about labor. I didn't want to make money off other people's labor. So while I was farming, I trained people as interns, and that's actually very expensive. So even though we didn't pay them much money, we paid them something, and we were constantly spending time training. We took that assignment very seriously and introduced them to everything that we were doing. It wasn't cheap labor for us. We had them see how we planned, help with seed ordering, with planting, with harvesting, with marketing, getting to know the members of our CSA, understanding how it worked, how our other business interactions worked, so that it was truly an education that helped people if they wanted to get started farming on their own. But I learned a lot from that and from the one or two people who were in our employ at Piecework Farm, that having written labor policies is really important, that it's clear to people what they're getting into. And that's one of the things that got me involved with the Agricultural Justice Project and in creating food justice